Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 13 of the Fantasy Cast. We are your co-hosts. I'm Lachlan McTagg. He is Ty White. As always, we're not together this week, unfortunately, because my American Thanksgiving break is over. So I am now back in lovely Springfield, Massachusetts. But Ty decided to stay back in Toronto. Ty, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, I didn't really have a choice. I mean, I had to continue school, but yeah, doing very well down here. Oh my gosh, the snow's starting to fall. It's beautiful. I got to go home on the weekend as well and played a bit of football outside in the snow with some family. So that was great. But great time of year. Not when the Chargers lose to the Broncos in the divisional game. That's tough. That's very tough, and that put a damper on that Sunday. But other than that, pretty good. How was your return to your new home, I guess, essentially for the year, Locke?
Yeah, it was good. There's still no snow here though. Like
Okay.
it's still like decently warm. A lot warmer than it was when I went home. So journey was good. It was long, but it had to be done. Um yeah, our first game's not till Sunday, so we got a bunch of practices in a row here. And then we basically have like a 3 week stretch that's like really busy. We have like one off day in the next like 3 weeks, and then we have Christmas break. So yeah, it's a little bit of a short spurt here for the boys, but we got, I think it's 7 games in the next 3 weeks. So
Oh wow.
could really if we put some wins together, we could really be in good shape heading into the new year, which is what we want to do.
Of course. Why not? Looking forward to that break coming up. But, we're getting towards the end of the fantasy football season, unfortunately. And, like it's already playoffs in our league, and in my other league, we're getting towards playoffs as well.
Yeah.
And that means we're kind of wrapping up the fantasy cast, or at least for the bulk of the fantasy football season, or while that's actually on. But we're still having fun, and we're having lots of fun.
Lots of fun.
According to our starts and sits, and oh my god, I was so impressed. Were you impressed?
I was thoroughly impressed, especially because last week we gave you 12
Yeah.
players instead of our usual 10.
Yeah.
6 starts, 6 sits. So there was so much room for error.
Because we had that debacle the week before where the two of the
Yeah.
players just didn't play like at all. So we couldn't
And it
really
was
count
just-
that as a win or a loss.
Yeah, escaped our mind.
Yeah. So, but we did incredible this week. We went 9 for 12 in starts and sits. That is amazing. And on top of that, we went perfect 6 for 6 in our starts and our start predictions. And there were some very like debatable ones in there.
Yeah.
And we came out clutch.
And
I'm so happy.
There were. And we really clutched up last week, man. Holy smokes.
Dude, that we were, it was like Michael Jordan against the Cavs in like game 6. We just clutched that clutch shot, buzzer beater. I mean, this was amazing how we did this, especially towards the end of the fantasy season. Not too many opportunities to strike so perfectly. And we did an amazing job, especially for starts. Let's get started with the starts here. Locke, you can start with the first one. Why not?
Yeah, we told you to start Damian Harris against the Tennessee Titans, and he put up 12 points. Chalk it up. Check mark.
Check mark there. Pat Freiermuth. He's, oh my gosh, ever since that like one time where he was sitting on our top list of the big weeks for tight ends, we were like, who the heck is this guy? This guy, I'm pretty sure, has been in every single episode up.
Yeah, we've talked about him. I mean, we kind of make a point at this time.
Yeah.
Like, at this point in the season, we kind of make a habit of talking about this guy because he's just such a beauty.
Yeah, exactly. He's such a beauty. That name, rookie at Penn State versus Cincinnati. We told him to start him. He had 14 points, and that was a big loss for the Steelers. Actually, they got walloped that game. It wasn't close, but it was certainly a start for Pat Freiermuth, and we're going to take that 14 points. Check mark. 2 check marks, Locke.
Yeah, we told you to start Darnell Mooney versus the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving football.
Yep, on American Thanksgiving. He put up 17.5. Man, the Lions keep finding ways to lose, dude.
Oh my gosh. But they do have a better record this month than the Rams.
That's true. But back-to-back timeouts. I was watching the end of that game, and
Yeah.
the commentators are like, I think they just called back-to-back timeouts. That should be a 5-yard penalty. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and when the ref went over to what's his name, Dan Campbell.
Dan
Is that
Campbell.
yeah? I was gonna say he went over to Dan Campbell and it's like you could basically see him like say to him, you called back-to-back timeouts, and Dan Campbell was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, just walks
Yeah.
away, and it was like, oh man, like that's just heartbreaking.
No,
But
for
again,
sure.
the Lions can't win on Thanksgiving. It's just a fact.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their records in recent years, it's terrible. And they have the most games played on Thanksgiving all time. They have the most wins, but they also have the most losses, which is not phenomenal whatsoever. I mean, that was a tough loss. It was 16-14
Very
against
tough loss.
like a very historic
The
rival. So
the Bears also were celebrating like they won the Super Bowl, but
oh yeah. I mean, calm down there, Bears. I mean, you don't have much to cheer about yourself. I mean, Andy Dalton, seriously. Like, okay. Next one. We told you to start Tony Pollard versus Las Vegas, and he had 16.8. We're very proud about this. We're very happy because
yeah,
Tony Pollard, sporadically good, kind of up and down, depending on how they use him in the game. And we predicted this one.
He was used very heavily as well in
Yeah.
in that game against Vegas.
He had 16.8 points.
He also ran 100 yards to the house on a kickoff, so
yeah,
that helped.
Beauty. That was also a crazy game. That was the middle of the pack game, like in the day. That was like the middle
the second
slot
of
on
3
Thanksgiving
games,
Day.
yes.
Yeah, in the middle of the day. And that one, we're going to talk about actually 2 of our sits we got wrong, played for Vegas. Vegas had a great game. But worst calls I think I've ever seen in my life in that game. So many against Dallas. It was just the referees were so excessive against them. I don't like Dallas personally, but that was ridiculous.
The PI was off the chain in that game. Who was the DV who had 4 PIs?
Oh my gosh, I think his name was King or something like. No, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Geez.
NFL memes roasted him the next day. Oh my gosh, did that guy get his? And to be fair, he did single-handedly lose them the game. I mean, I hate to say it, but you lost your team the game single-handedly.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, like.
Yeah. Hey, Cowboys feelings. How Cowboys fans? Y'all still them boys after 3 straight?
Y'all still, dude. They had
still them
NFL,
boys. Like
NFL memes at a heyday.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, the Cowboys lose. Second of all, the Cowboys lose on Thanksgiving. Third of all, the Cowboys lose 3 straight. Like.
Yeah. It was. I mean. I'm very, very sorry for Cowboys fans. That was brutal. That was a very tough game. But Tony Pollard got him right. Locke, let's go to this next one. And we're going to talk about this player a little bit later.
Holy smokes. Jalen Waddle versus Carolina. He had a nice 28-point output versus that Carolina defense. That was a very good pick by us. Not scared of saying that.
Not scared at all. And our last one, we squeaked by, like kind of. I mean, this one was kind of close, but we got 2 Pittsburgh Steelers right, even though they got creamed by the Bengals. We told you to start Chase Claypool. He put up 11 points against Cincinnati, and that is 6 for 6, shooting 6 for 6 from the field for our starts, which is amazing. It's our best performance and our output yet coming from our start section. Very proud on the Fantasy Cast.
Yeah, let's move on to the sits.
A round of applause.
Yeah, very, very well done.
Very well done.
We'll move on to the sits now, and we weren't as lucky with the sits. We told you to sit Hunter Renfrow. He put up 21. He had a very, very nice performance against the Cowboys.
Incredible game. So we got to give that to him. Very good. I mean, we also got 3 right here, so we were shooting 50% from the field.
I will say though, Darren Waller left that game early, so.
Certainly helped.
That's a little bit of a reason why Renfrow got.
That's like 50% of the targets right there, pretty much to Waller. So it's unfortunate, but that's how she goes, as they say. So 21 points there. We got that one wrong. However, we did get Ryan Tannehill versus New England absolutely correct. He had less than 10 points, 9.12. Which was 6 points off the margin of getting that right or wrong. So we totally got that one right with Ryan Tannehill. What about the next one?
Marquise Callaway versus the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo with a massive, massive Thanksgiving win. Dawson Knox took a bit too big of a bite in his Thanksgiving
Oh,
interview after, and he couldn't talk for the whole
no.
thing. He was just chewing.
It was worth it though. I mean, great interview.
Yeah,
Great.
he took a big bite of the leg and just he
Yeah.
couldn't finish it. Yeah,
I
that was
wonder, the thing I'm wondering, like, do they keep that thing warm? Like, how does it taste when they bring,
I
because
mean, they
like
probably
the
don't care
camera
because
shows they have it on
they
TV.
just won, right? Like they probably don't care if
Yeah.
it's cold and like
Mm,
damp, you know? Like I don't
yeah,
really think that it's a turkey and they're giving one after the game. So,
for sure. That
can't
was a great game in the Big Easy for the Bills. I mean, that was a statement win.
I
It
was
was one
so
they
happy,
needed.
dude.
Yeah.
They definitely needed that.
Because look who they got coming up next week. We got the Patriots in a battle. I mean, where the
That's a
Patriots crawled out of
massive
hell.
game, dude.
Bill Belichick crawled out of hell with that Patriots team, and they
Yeah.
are looking unfortunately, they're looking amazing like they always do. So that's too bad. But we also told you to start. Wow. Oh my gosh. It's a good week when we get Cole Beasley right on starts
Oh
and
my God.
sits.
Yeah.
I mean, this was very close. This was actually a very close one. Only not, he put up 9.8, so about 0.2 away from becoming a start, but still we got it right versus New Orleans once again in that game. So that was great.
Yeah, we told you just sit Derek Carr versus the Cowboys, and Derek Carr actually
Whoops.
had a pretty decent game,
Yep.
putting up 21 points there against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and this last one here, I mean, we were getting a bit cocky. I mean, we should have known that you tell someone to sit Adam Thielen once, you get that right, and you quit while you're
Never
ahead. You
say
don't,
his name again.
don't tell us again, because he put up 23 versus San Fran. He caught a touchdown in that game too. I mean, he had a good game, very good game. And San Francisco, even though they
One of the
won,
few times this year, I think that he's actually got more points than Justin Jefferson.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, there's only a handful of times he pulled, like recently he's had like back-to-back 20-point games, which has happened in the past, but he's a very sporadically good player. Not just the way that the offense rolls, and sometimes they're hot and cold, but yeah, so we got that one wrong, which puts us 3 for 6 in our sits, 9 for 12 overall, which was a fantastic week. Maybe it's just the luck of that we were actually in person together talking about this stuff. So I mean, it was certainly nice, but wow, I'm very happy right there for us.
Absolutely. We're going to move on to big weeks here. I'll list off some quarterbacks real quick. Josh Allen had 28, Aaron Rodgers had 26, Dak Prescott had 25, Stafford had 22, and Wentz had 22 as well. Very traditional list there.
Yeah,
no Trevor Siemian this week. So
finally got rid of him. Yeah. And I'm happy that we got rid of him, because that means Buffalo creamed that team. So that was wonderful. You wide receivers, Jalen Waddle, we told you to start, obviously. It was the highest scoring wide receiver this week with 28 points. Cordero Patterson, 27, fantastic week. Really, really good game for Cordero Patterson. T. Higgins, 23. Also a very good player. It's amazing the production that he's able to put up, even behind Jamar Chase. And I mean, they have great weapons on it. Tyler Boyd as well, of course. Adam Thielen, 23. Whoops. And then Kendrick Bourne, 23 points against the Titans. And the Patriots really stomped on the Titans that game.
Running backs, Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny, looks to be returning to find form again. He put up 44 this week. Yeah. What a game. Wow. Joe Mixon just keeps producing this year.
Yeah.
Like, man, he had 32. Elijah Mitchell, had 27. Cordero Patterson, we're mentioning his name twice because, like, he's kind of both.
He's listed as a running back and a wide receiver.
He's listed as both. Okay, so we're going to say his name again. Cordero Patterson had 27.5. Very good game. Antonio Gibson, holy smokes. Out of the weeds.
Yeah, seriously.
He had 23. Honorable mention JD McKissick, I'd say. He had 20.
No, he was the next. He was the next on the list. Yes. And if you take out Cordell Patterson, who we already mentioned, I mean, he would have been on that list. So good for him. Tight ends, Jack Doyle. Wow. First time we said his name this year. He's a solid tight end. He's just not great in fantasy football. Put up 20 points in a loss for Indianapolis against the Bucs. Rob Gronkowski at 19, Dawson Knox 18. Good to see Dawson Knox back. That's very nice. Eating that turkey leg. Mark Andrews 16 and Dalton Schultz with 15.
Yeah,
Defense
and
teams.
special teams now. Miami's defense, man. What are they on this
Wow.
year?
We've said, I think,
Like, what are they doing?
Locke, let's just take a
They had
little bit of a rewind.
they had 23 this past week versus the Panthers. Cincinnati put up 19 versus the Steelers. Big Ben looked about as mobile as my nightstand.
Oh my goodness. I mean, seriously though. Miami,
then-
though, we just one thing to
yeah.
mention. That's 3 times out of the last 4 episodes that we've mentioned them for defense special teams.
Man, that's nuts.
And they've won 4 in a row.
That's nuts. Another AFC East team to contend with Buffalo.
For sure.
Love my life.
Oops. Yeah. But I don't think they're too much of a threat.
Hopefully not. And then Denver, unfortunately, put up 17 points on your Los Angeles Chargers.
That was just horrendous.
Unfortunate. So unfortunate.
It was just a terrible game overall. I mean, brutal. And that pick six, I mean, it wasn't even Herbert's fault. Like Eckler just completely bobbled it, and Surtain just gallops in the end zone. I hate that bugger. I hate everyone over there at Denver, especially Drew Lock.
He's good though.
Yeah, he's good.
Surtain's good, man.
The DBs are good, but they're all okay. We're gonna talk about this a little bit later. Denver's offense is nothing special whatsoever. Bull crappery happened in that game. The Chargers had it was going to be 2 turnovers for the Chargers that both got called back or somehow, or it wasn't a fumble, or I don't want to get into it. I hate Denver so much. we might touch on that just a little bit later. But now we're going on to waiver wire pickups, and as we mentioned, very scarce list moving on to the end of the fantasy football season. But we got Jamal Williams. He was a running back for Detroit. He actually put up 20. He was like one of the highest scoring running backs in week 1 fantasy football. Yes. I remember that.
Very avid anime lover as well. If you guys probably know what I'm talking about, the video of him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you say? He likes anime. He's 40% rostered. DeAndre Swift is hurt. He's questionable to return in the upcoming game. And even if he does return, Jamal Williams will probably see a large share of those backfield touches, if not the majority. And some of his big weeks, when you look when when Detroit needed to play him, he's gotten 25, 14, and 13. So can be quite an efficient back. So we're saying definitely win.
You also saw this a little bit from him last year in Green Bay as well.
Oh, yeah.
So honestly, not really surprised that he's doing the same thing in Detroit. Doesn't matter where he's playing. Yeah. He's gonna be solid if you need him, right? So
can we acknowledge how yucky that backfield was last year over in Green Bay? They had
AJ Dillon was at the 3 spot.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams was backing up Aaron Jones.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. Amazing backs. Yeah, let's share the next one.
Cedric Wilson, we're saying his name yet again because this guy's a baller, man. You should pick him up.
We were right. And we were right.
Pick him up.
Why you should pick him up, because he had 17 points last week.
We don't say names twice often in the waiver wire. So when it happens, you should probably pick him up. Just pick him up.
Yeah.
He's taking targets away from DK Metcalf. We'll talk about that later. Just go and hit that plus button on his name in the waiver wire. Go get him.
Yeah, great receiver. But the only unfortunate thing is CeeDee Lamb's returning for Dallas. So that's the one thing, but still, great receiver, and he showed it on Thanksgiving Day. He had a great game. And then last is Alexander Mattison, obviously, because unfortunately Dalvin Cook and even Christian McCaffrey. It's just so unfortunate. What's happened to those 2 guys. Injuries should be canceled in the NFL. No one likes them.
No.
But it's part of the game. And Madison, I mean, he's a solid back when he needs to be, kind of like Jamal Williams, but even more heightened version. He said 23, 26, and 10 were his biggest games throughout the year. So he can certainly show up when he needs to. He's only 53% rostered. So get him while you can. And he's actually a start for us too. We're going to mention that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'll continue this into our starts and sits for this week. Hopefully we'll have another really solid week, because that makes us happy. You know what? I'm really happy about our last performance, and you guys should be too, because you know what? We gave you 12 players, right? Yeah. We're back to our usual 10 though, 5 starts, 5 sits. And our first one is again, Alexander Mattison. The Vikings are playing Detroit, and the Vikings have put themselves in an okay position for the playoffs.
Oh, for sure.
Coming off a big win against the Packers.
Mhm.
right? I mean, it doesn't obviously help that Cook's injured, but Madison is a guy that if you grab off the waiver wire, if he's there, you need to be putting in your lineup because the volume is immediately there. This guy's been in that offensive system for a couple years now, so it's not like he's anything new. Him and Kirk Cousins have a little bit of a connection. He has some rhythm within that offense. So there's no reason why you shouldn't start him this week if you have him.
Yeah, all that offense is amazing. Like, unfortunately, last week they lost to San Francisco, but the week before, like you mentioned, huge win against a good Packers team who just obliterated the Rams, who are supposed to be good, but now they're fake. We're moving on to Carson Wentz versus Houston. Houston sucks. I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. I don't going to say much there, but Carson Wentz and that team is they're doing really well. The Colts are a scary team, in my opinion. They almost beat the Bucks.
We've said this before. We've said this before, man.
Yeah, and
Colts
we just like them. We just like them. They got it off to a tough start in the year, but obviously we mentioned that literally from back then, there might have been like the best 1-4 team in NFL history. I mean, they're a fantastic roster. Carson Wentz is playing efficient, and against Houston, I mean, he should have a pretty big game there. So we're telling you to start him.
Yeah, our next start, Rob Gronkowski versus the Atlanta Falcons. Why? Well, the Bucks are starting to roll because the playoffs are approaching.
Oh yeah.
And Atlanta really isn't that good. I mean, their defense is really nothing to marvel at. And I know I'm a fan of the Falcons, but I just feel like the Bucks are gonna really roll over them this week. And that's okay because Atlanta is not near the level that Tampa Bay is right now. That's
It's
okay.
just a fact.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So anyone in that offense really could have potential to have a big game. But we're going with Gronkowski because if we went with anyone other than Gronkowski in that offense, it would be a bit of a bone for us. Like if we told you to start like Mike Evans, like, oh,
you should be starting him regardless.
Yeah,
but Gronkowski's, especially like in tight ends, it's very debatable who to start. But Gronkowski's at 13 and 19 in his last two.
Yep.
Solid player, obviously, and against Atlanta, that certainly helps. Myles Gaskin, a name we like saying a lot, and he's playing the Giants this week, and we're telling you to start Myles Gaskin against the Giants because he's great versus bad teams. He's had 17 points versus Atlanta, 18 versus the New York Jets. Sorry, that wasn't a shot at Atlanta, but their defense, and 15 versus the Houston Texans. So it should be a no-brainer to start Myles Gaskin this week. Hopefully history will repeat itself and he will do well against a pretty widely renowned bad defense.
Next up, we got Michael Gallup versus the New Orleans Saints. Michael Gallup is kind of at the wide receiver 2 spot right now. And again, with CeeDee Lamb coming back, that's a much needed boost for the Cowboys. But still, he had 15 points last week, and New Orleans is a struggling. They are struggling right now. It's not pretty right now in New Orleans. And expect the Cowboys to bounce back because they need to, because their schedule is too easy for them not to be a decent team and make a decent run in the playoffs.
Absolutely. So that concludes our starts. We're going to be moving on to sits coming up for week 13. Wow. Do we have some bold ones in here, Locke? Starting off with DK Metcalf versus San Francisco. What a huge name to throw out there.
Yes.
But we were talking about this, before the show, and we were thinking, wow, should be considered to be a sit? This is kind of like that Thielen take we had a couple of weeks back before we colossally were proven wrong last week. But Metcalf is at only 8 receptions over 3 games. He has not scored higher than 10 points in the last 3 games. And all the weeks before that, he's had at least 11. So Russ is certainly not cooking. He's cooking Eggo waffles, maybe at the best. That's literally all that needs to be said. Seattle is not the same. Seattle is improved.
No, it's kind of weird right now. Like since that bye week 4 weeks ago, again, he's had 8 receptions in 3 games. Hasn't had double digits, and before his lowest output of the year was 11. Like it's a little bit of a shocking turnaround right now. And I think until he kind of has that bigger game later on, hopefully not next week. No, it won't be next week because we told you to sit him, and we're going to be correct on that.
I'd knock on wood there. I mean, we still got to be safe. But the main onus on this lies upon Russell Wilson. I mean, this guy was cooking gourmet frittatas and chorizo sausage for breakfast, and he's transitioned to Eggo waffles with peanut butter and jam
But
on top, maybe
that's
some
always
bowl of Cheerios.
oh, jeez.
Like
That's always
that's the
how it
best
is
now.
though. That's always
Yeah,
how it is though with him, man. Like he's
yeah,
always the MVP after week 5.
yeah. It's yeah.
Always.
So Metcalf,
Always. Yeah.
not of his necessarily of his own fault, sitting him. Jacoby Myers versus Buffalo. Myers is I mean, the thing actually with him, he's being a pretty consistent player, always around the 10 range of points. But that being said, Buffalo coming into this game, I really trust Sean McDermott. They really have to have a big game here. They need to solidify their place in the AFC East.
This is their biggest game of the season, I'd say.
I totally agree. And it
last
definitely
week was
is.
last week was their biggest game of the season, and so is this week. Like,
yes,
yeah. And I mean, I also think Buffalo has something going for them with Trey White out for the season. He tore his ACL. I think that rallies the troops.
It could. You know, it's weird how a good player
team,
drops out and then the rest of the team goes on fire. I mean, look what's happening to the Rams. Kind of the same thing, but in the reverse with the Von Miller and OBJ, they haven't won a game with them yet. I mean, it's just something's not right there. Tre'Davious White, I agree with you. That could fire up the troops. And Jacoby Myers, we just feel like, he'll get decent amount of targets, probably get around an 8-point range, but I don't think it's going to be strong enough.
It's going to be close. I'll put it at that. I'll put it that way. But I feel like if any receiver is going to have a big game against the Bills, it's going to be Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah,
and I feel like he's
been playing really well.
One of the ways that New England will attack the Bills is on the ground, and I think they'll try and exploit them more, and hopefully have bigger games from their running backs. Hopefully not, actually, because I hate the Patriots.
Me too. But like you're right. I mean, look how much depth they have there too. I mean, Harris, Stevenson, and Bolden, who've all had big games in the past 3 or 4 weeks. So that's scary. But then this next one is another bold prediction, Lachlan.
Yes. Cordero Patterson versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, I just think they're gonna get shut down. And Cordero's worst output of the season was against the Cowboys. I believe he had like 5.4, 5.5 points in that range. Falcon just got completely shut down. I see that happening again on Sunday or whenever I think they play on Sunday.
This is just one of like you said, when we talk about the Bucs going into the playoffs, everything seems to be clicking.
Man.
Yeah,
and
they're rolling.
The other thing is like, when's the last time you saw like a legitimate Tom Brady post?
Yeah.
It's been a few weeks. It's because the Bucs are quietly winning and Tom Brady's offense is quietly cooking. Yeah. And then they're going to go into the playoffs really hot and in really good form. And they're going to make it to the NFC Championship game. Like,
I totally agree.
I said this a couple of weeks ago too when they lost. I forget who they lost to, but I said this is.
It was Washington, I think. I think it was that Washington game. Yeah.
But I said that this is probably the last loss you'll see the Buccaneers have in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but you're absolutely correct in my opinion.
The cycle repeats itself.
Really, it's like. It's like a cycle, but not quite the cycle that Baker Mayfield's having over there. I'm not even going to talk about that terrible Browns team right now. But I just feel like this one of those games, like you're right, quietly getting the job done. You're not even going to be watching that game unless you're a Bucs or Falcons fan. But you're going to tune in on Red Zone. Oh, it's 45-10. And they just spanked the Falcons in that game. So Brady had a great game. So there's definitely that. That's bull take though. Noah Fant versus Kansas City is our next take. That's the Sunday Night Football game. Ridiculous in my opinion. That should have been Herbert because they moved the game. That was supposed to be San Francisco, Seattle. That should have been Herbert and Joe Burrow. The first time they ever played each other in their careers, in my opinion. Not Teddy Bridgewater. That's just my opinion as a Chargers fan. But that's going to be a primetime game. Noah Fant. Injuries on and off, you know what I'm saying? And Kansas City is playing a lot better. They're looking a lot more like a Kansas City we got to know. And the biggest part of that is their defense. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has not been outstanding whatsoever. The defense.
I also, another thing though, like I feel like I feel like the spotlight is less on Kansas City now.
Yeah,
You know what I
no, for
mean?
sure.
Like and for some teams that's a good thing.
Yeah,
When the spotlight and all the national media attention is constantly on you, it's not good. We saw that with the Cowboys last year. The
yeah.
Cowboys had so much negative attention and energy thrown at them all season, and rightfully so. I mean, they went 8-8, but
Mm,
I mean, they had a roster to go, friggin' like, I don't know. They had the roster to probably be like an 11 or 12 win team
for sure.
and not
Yeah.
be 8-8. But it's all the negative energy that was being thrown at them. And Kansas City was going through a tough time. They were not playing some good football, and the media attention just kind of went out because everyone's like, oh, Kansas City is not great this year. Then okay,
Yeah.
and then
They
Kansas
kind of
City just
accepted that and
yeah,
they moved forward from it. No, I totally agree with you. And the one other thing to mention, and I mentioned this previously, Denver's offense is not special at all. I mean, the defense, make no mistake, against the Chargers won them that game. It was not the offense whatsoever. And we don't feel that they're going to have a strong output at all. I mean, go back and look at the receivers numbers in that Chargers game. Judy and Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, they did nothing. They literally did nothing. The only player on the backfield that did some was Javonte Williams, actually.
yeah.
But yeah, so no offense to sit. Let's hear this last one. Another pretty bold one.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders versus the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football. I just feel like in the past couple of weeks that the receptions and targets haven't really been looking Sanders' way.
Yeah.
And I feel like Allen and Diggs are starting to really make stuff happen now these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Especially against New Orleans, man. Stephon Diggs looked good.
Yeah.
So I feel like for New England, they're gonna have a tough assignment, but their defense has also been playing really well. And I think they'll look to take Knox and Diggs out of the equation, but I don't know how much Emmanuel Sanders will be in on any of the snaps, and let alone competing with Cole Beasley as well. I feel like this is the type of game that Beasley can really show what he's all about.
For sure. Like this, I mean, this happened in previous weeks where Beasley gets like he counts for like 6 out of the 7 targets on the drive when Buffalo goes and scores. And literally that one drive makes up that fantasy football performance for a lot of people and gets them the majority of the points right there. So, I mean, always a tough one to call between those two, but this is actually, I believe it's the first time we're saying to sit Emmanuel Sanders ever on the fantasy cast. So interesting.
Very, 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 very hot list this week. So who knows how good we do.
Hopefully near that 9-7. Like 9 for 12 mark, maybe like 7 for 10, 8 for 10 would be lovely. Fantasy player of the week. This one, again, we don't like picking the top ranked player, but I mean, Jalen Waddle's a good shout for this one because Carolina was doing pretty decently until Cam Newton became New England Patriots Cam Newton. I mean, that's literally what we saw in that game, unfortunately. But Leonard Fournette is our fantasy player of the week. This is kind of like Austin Eckler last week, 4 touchdowns, Jonathan Taylor, 5 touchdowns. Now we're seeing another 4 total touchdowns from a running back against a good defense. Indianapolis is not a bad team, like we're mentioning, whatsoever. So it's very impressive what he was able to do. He had 100 rushing yards for 3 rushing touchdowns, 7 receptions for 31 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. Amazing week. And certainly the concrete definition, that's a textbook fantasy player of the week.
Should we move on to the big question of the week?
Yeah, it is a pretty
fantasy question
this week. Yes.
So the question on hand is, who is the hottest fantasy prospect right now? And fantasy prospect being rookie or young player that has really risen the ranks this season.
Yes. So this is someone who is perhaps an unsuspecting player coming into this season. As far as fantasy production, the team that he was placed on, it's Jalen Waddle. In our opinion, it's Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. He's actually the 32nd ranked player in fantasy football in PPR league. He's 181 fantasy points this year. He's played 12 games so far. 8 of those 12 games, he's had double-digit points. in a fairly tough schedule. I mean, we're talking about this NFC this AFC East,
AFC East.
which let's consider three of the toughest teams to play right now are the Dolphins, obviously themselves, but look at the Patriots and the Bills too. Two very hard opponents. They have to play twice throughout the year. Mix in a few other tough AFC games. They beat Baltimore this year. So it's, and like you mentioned this before the show, actually, Locke, Waddle's only done this with 4 receiving touchdowns. The rest has been receptions and yards, and he's very impressive.
It's not like he's a Robert Tonyan like last year, where he was like, but latter portion of the season he was like a touchdown a game. Robert Tonyan was last year.
Yeah,
but he had a touchdown last week, which helped his 28-point output. But 4 TDs on the season. This guy just goes out on the field and just balls.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really mattered that he hasn't scored touchdowns. He's had games where he's had 20 plus points without a touchdown. That's really impressive.
It is, for sure.
Really impressive.
And the thing is, no one expected this from him, especially when you consider that he's on a less than spectacular Miami Dolphins team all around. I mean, it's really like not impressive whatsoever. I mean, Tua, I hate to say it, but he's not worthy of the 5th overall pick in the draft in 2020. He's an efficient quarterback, but I mean, he's not the most talented arm-wise, that's for sure. And Jalen Waddle is very quick, almost Tyreek Hill-like player, which you could use him on the deep ball if ever needed to, but that's not the case in Miami. Their O-line isn't spectacular whatsoever. It's not like the defense is getting sometimes a bunch of turnovers in the last 3-4 weeks, yes, but prior to that
portion, the first part of the season, no. Recently, their defense has found something. I don't know.
A bit of a groove for sure. But we firmly believe that Jalen Waddle, fantastic player, one of the hottest prospects in fantasy football. Certainly, you probably drafted him late if you have him on your team. Certainly a keeper for the next year and someone you'd like to draft. I could see him going as early as 3rd round next year in some leagues.
Depending on how his season ends, he's probably a 3rd, 4th round pick.
Yes, for sure.
Potentially next year. So
that's Jalen Waddle. And that concludes episode 13 of the Fantasy Cast.
Yeah, we have again, playoffs are approaching fast. I know in our league, our playoffs are going to start this coming week, and we actually do it in our league. I don't know if anyone else in any other fantasy leagues does it differently than us, probably because every league is different, every commissioner is different. But we have round 1 is 2 weeks. So like one playoff round is 2 weeks. So it's like it's a total aggregate score, which is fascinating. Because I've seen people put up, one guy puts up a lot of points, the other guy doesn't have a great week, and then the next week the other guy doesn't put up a lot of points, and the guy who's behind actually goes way ahead, and it's gives me European Champions League vibes.
Oh, for sure, that aggregate score. Speaking of which, Robert Lewandowski got robbed. Ballon d'Or.
Got robbed.
Messi. Well, no, this is the wrong kind of football we're talking about right now.
Wrong kind of football, but I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Just showing you guys we know multiple sports. We're not just fantasy football junkies.
I'm literally wearing a hockey hat right now. I mean, come on. So
I play hockey. Come on.
You play hockey, exactly. We respect a bit of everything here in Canada. But that includes episode 13. Some great week of football. Make sure to sit back and enjoy coming up. We got great primetime game, like we said. Maybe perhaps one of the best, most anticipated games of the year, that New England Buffalo game on Monday Night Football. Man. That should be spectacular.
I will be watching that like a Seattle Seahawk.
Oh.
Because I can't
Except
swim.
You're going to be...
No, I'm kidding. I actually can't. No.
I respect that, though. Hawks can't swim. What a dumb name.
No, they can't. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, episode 13 is in the books right now. If you'll notice, I still have my mustache because we are filming this on the last day of November. So thank you guys so much for all the donations we've received. It all goes to a great cause, of course, the Movember Foundation.
Yep.
I will be
That's
shaving.
$470 raised on behalf of the Fantasy Cast towards the Movember
Yeah.
Fund. Round of
So-
applause for
So
everyone
thank you
out there.
guys. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate all the donations.
All for a
After
great cause.
after we conclude this episode, I am shaving this thing off because I can't stand it anymore.
Oh,
And it's because it's almost December.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a pleasure to grow my mustache, and
it's a pleasure to
support-
grow the peach fuzz that you'll be able
Yeah.
to see when I turn on my camera light on my phone for the
Yep.
story as usual. But yeah, it's been fun growing it out. For
Yep, it
just a
has.
little bit. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, guys. So episode 13 has concluded. He is Ty White. I'm Lachlan McTagg. Kick back, relax, enjoy some football this weekend. Watch those primetime games. And yeah, peace out, guys. We'll see you next week.